the cloud, please. Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 7:30 Tech Biz session. Today, we're going to be discovering about coding. And our presenter today is Amanda Dunlap. She is business and computer education teacher at Corona High School here in New Mexico. She is also a ranch wife and a mom of 4 boys. And she has a passion for computer science education. And Corona is a part of our region, and we're very proud of all the work that she does with her students in her district. And we wanted to make sure to bring her and have her present Tech Bits so she can share just some of the amazing things that she's been accomplishing in her school district. So, you know, there's so many different technologies that are coming in that our young people have to be savvy to when they get out into the real world, and coding is one of them. So kudos to you, Amanda, for bringing that to Corona School District, and I can't wait to discover more about what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, so I was excited when April asked, and I'll give just kind of a little background. Of course, I had to stick my face in my slides, but you know, I think I know pretty much everybody here but Chris, because Gloria's from Corona. So yay, glad to have somebody that came from Corona and went out into the big bad world on. And of course, Shiloh works closely with us at the school. So before we get started, and then I'll kind of go into my background, if you guys will just kind of introduce yourselves and tell us what you do and what grades you teach, or what you're passionate about, I guess, within the school systems. And then that'll give me kind of an idea of which parts of code.org to show more of, I guess. So Gloria, if you don't mind, we'll let you kick it off.
Hi, I'm Gloria Luetta's kid, and I'm from Corona, grown and raised. I'm a retired teacher, but I am an AP coach for the state of New Mexico. So I'm an advocate for teachers, specifically AP teachers throughout the state, and AP students and AP administrators. And I'm just always trying to find resources for them and to share those resources. So I try to tune into Tech Bits pretty frequently as a result of that.
Yeah. Yay. All right, Shyla.
Hello, my name is Shyla Irvin. I'm a certified occupational therapy assistant, and I'm with Region 9. I've been here for about 3 years now. I'm currently servicing Corona and Capitan schools, and I love both of them. I actually got to talk to Amanda yesterday, and it was really nice to catch up.
Yes. All right, Chris.
Good morning. My name is Chris Ard. I'm in Roswell, and I'm an arts integration specialist.
Ooh.
And so this year I'm working with kindergarten, 1st grade, and 4th grades. And I'm going into the classrooms, helping the teachers teach the Common Core standards through one of the art forms. We do performing and visual arts, but I also incorporate a lot of STEAM. And I have been doing a little bit of pixel art with our digital art form.
Nice. Cool. That's exciting. And Mr. Dooley.
Well, good morning. I'm Brian Dooley. I'm the executive director at Region 9. I have a passion for Region 9. I have a passion for Tech Bits and people that love Tech Bits. And so, Chris, it's really nice to see you coming in from Roswell. We'd opened this up last year statewide. So it's really neat to have outside participants. And the other thing I'm really passionate about is our academic competition that's going to be virtual this afternoon, or this morning, actually. They're having a dry run with students and teachers. And so that's going to be really fun to see how that grows and as we move forward. So,
yeah, I know the Corona kids are excited that they'll have Knowledge Bowl back. So I'm glad that we found a way to kind of get that back online in some way or shape or form. So that is exciting. Okay, so a little bit about why I got into computer science. I've been with Corona Schools. This is my 13th year to be with Corona Schools. And when I first started teaching, we taught keyboarding at the 7th grade level. And it wasn't very long, I think maybe 2 years before I approached Mr. Lightfoot and keyboarding just no longer made sense. We were standardized testing kids on the computers in the elementary level. So they were coming over already really kind of knowing how to type some. It probably wasn't proper finger placement like we push, but I'm also a big proponent of little guys not necessarily being able to reach the keyboards at that point. Now we've got the Chromebooks and the streams that are smaller and they work a lot better with their little fingers. But I really didn't see the point in teaching keyboarding anymore. These kids already had these skills and they were just bored in learning these keyboarding skills. So I approached Mr. Lightfoot about trying to do something different. And so I started with CS for All. And CS for All was trying to it's a program called NetLogo, which is agent-based modeling. So you type in your code, you go back to the other screen, there's the program screen, and then there's a screen that shows the output, and you were able to see your turtle move around instantly. So Mr. Hindi, our science teacher, and I kind of tag teamed this and decided that this was something that our kids could really benefit from. And there's a lot of other skills in computer science besides just the programming piece of it. And so it was something that we both felt passionate about. I had a student come through that was interested in computer science, but none of us really had a background. We didn't offer the classes. And so I really felt like we didn't do him justice. We didn't service his interests and his needs. And so it was something that really piqued my interest to get into our schools. And so we started with NetLogo, and we really started at like the sophomore, junior, senior level. And that was a great start. I wouldn't change it for anything for starting there, but at the same time, these kids weren't exposed to computer science before that. So their interest in it was not as piqued as it would have been had they been exposed in the elementary or middle school levels. And statistically speaking, we've seen that if you expose them in the elementary levels, they're more likely to go through to the middle school level and then on to the high school level. If you just try to catch them in high school, they're like, oh yeah, you told me I have to be here. Great, it's a time filler. It's not really my interest. And so I really tried to start, once we started with NetLogo, I tried to go over to our elementaries, and that's when I discovered Hour of Code with code.org. And so that's what got me hooked on code.org, was their Hour of Code. And it was just some little bitty thing where I could get kids in the elementary and middle school levels to at least get some exposure into computer science, whether they understand the whole idea behind computer science is maybe different, but at least they've got some exposure. And so by the time they get to me in 7th grade, they know at least what I'm talking about when I say computer science. So that's really how all of this kind of got started. And like April said, I am a ranch wife and a mom to 4 kiddos. And so trying to match this with the industry to really, we've got a lot of kids that are ranch kids, and they're like, what has computer science got to do with ranching? And so now we've got the wind farms, which is great because they can see technology in that form. But we've also really kind of tried to get some ideas rolling on how computer science could serve the ranching industry to pique our kids' interests. And we had a student at one point help us. He tried to help us develop an app. We couldn't get the voice recognition going, but my husband had really told him, he's like, it's called a heifer checker app. I can just go out and I can say tag numbers and it checks them off in a spreadsheet, and I don't have to look back and forth and lose my numbers and those kind of things. And so finding ways like that for kids to relate it to whatever industries they're exposed to, whatever industries they're passionate about, that maybe we can consider as a career. That's where a lot of my interest in computer science really started to grow even more so. So we had everybody except for Abigail joined us a little bit later. Abigail, if you're able, can you introduce yourself and just tell me what grade levels you teach and what subjects or what your role is, so I have an idea?
Hi, good morning. Sorry about that. I'm actually an administrator. I have the fine arts program. Chris Ard is my arts integration specialist. And so we are always looking at new ways to incorporate STEAM. And so we're excited to learn about this today.
Yay, I got 2 art people. That's kind of exciting. I don't get to see art people very much because usually for us, we just don't have art. It's not something we have up here except for elementary level. So it's exciting to see different places try to fit computer science in. So welcome and thank you for introducing yourself to us.
Thank you for this morning.
Yeah. Okay, so code.org is a nonprofit dedicated to expanding access to computer science in schools and increasing participation by especially young women and students from our underrepresented groups. We have seen traditionally in the tech industry, it is usually male oriented, and then it's usually either Caucasian or Asian kind of dominated. And so we want those underrepresented groups to be exposed, to have an idea so that we can broaden those demographics within the industry. Their vision is that every student in every school has the opportunity to learn computer science as part of their core K through 12 education. So as facilitators or as teachers of code.org, you don't have to have a background in computer science. They scaffold very well so that whether you are a master coder or have never coded anything in your life, you can follow this curriculum and at least get the concepts of computer science. You can start coding things and at least see how they interact with one another, which is fantastic. And with our kids, being a career tech teacher, I always tell my students, it really comes down to being a producer of technology versus just a consumer of technology. And even teaching business, we teach them the same thing, right? We don't want them to just be customers that go pull things off the shelf. We want them to be knowledgeable. We want them to be aware of why prices are the way they are, why we buy the things we do. And technology is no different, really. You know, once they pick up a phone, we want them to be able to say, hey, I kind of understand how this app works. And I can maybe add some things to it. Maybe it's not working 100%. We have bugs or it's not doing exactly what I want it to do. So I want them to critically think about things when they're using them rather than just mindlessly playing games or going through an app. So I really kind of hammer this with my students that we've got to be producers, not just consumers. That way we're more aware, more knowledgeable, and we don't get taken advantage of because technology can easily turn that way if it's not used in a productive manner. So code.org has some core values. They really believe that computer science is foundational for all students. They're committed to equity and access and opportunity for all kids to be able to do computer science or to have at least have the exposure to computer science. They believe in the power of a collaborative education community. So when you become a code.org teacher, you are not on an island by yourself. You're connected to other teachers that teach code.org. New Mexico has a pretty good code.org presence. We've done now 3 cohorts of about 10 to 15 teachers. So you're looking at least 30 teachers that you can connect with that have taught this curriculum in their classrooms and have exposure to this curriculum. We're agile and responsive to feedback. Support on code.org has been the fastest responding support I think I've ever seen in the tech industry. Normally when I send an email saying, hey, my student is having trouble, this isn't showing up on their side, but as a teacher, I've assigned it. It's like 2 hours and they've gotten back to me. I don't think response time has ever been much longer than that. And that's really something that they value, is making sure that the teachers feel supported by quick response times if there's trouble or issue on the platform. And they act with integrity and transparency. Everything is online. If you want to see how funding for code.org works, it's all there. They want everything out in the open. They don't want any of their donors or people that help support code.org, they don't want them left in the dark and not knowing what's going on. So everything is right there. And it's totally free curriculum, which is wonderful. And they really try to lock that in so that these kids, especially in the underrepresented areas or the poor school districts, have access, which is phenomenal. And it really does help those smaller schools that don't have that access. And then they believe in broad impact, and it requires big thinking and acting kind of on a holistic measure. So they don't want kids to feel overwhelmed by this. They want them to feel comfortable and confident in their abilities and not just feel like they're kind of swimming. So some other skills that computer science brings to our students, students will get problem solving skills. They'll learn how to break problems down and how to do abstraction. So if we're baking a cake, we don't just throw everything in the bowl at one time. We have to break it down in steps to get a beautiful final product. And so that's what I appreciate about computer science. And that's really how I can get my kids to relate it to English or to math or science or ag education or even social studies, that we're going to take whatever problem we're facing and we're going to break it down into small steps. And I think computer science, because it forces you to do that, really has been beneficial in helping them break things down into chunks. Teamworking skills. As much as kids want to say, oh, programmers work by themselves all the time, that's not the case in the industry. And they're really like fascinated to find out that there's a lot of collaboration that happens behind the scenes when I'm developing an app or developing a web page or coding anything. And then when I'm just working, with computers in general, I'm going to have to work with somebody else at some point, whether it's tech support or whether it's sharing my knowledge with others. And so the teamworking skills is a big thing. Code.org uses paired programming quite a bit. And that's a whole concept that gets students to realize that at some points, one person is the driver and one person is the navigator. The driver doesn't get to put any of their own input in. The navigator has to talk them through, and then they get to switch roles, and you really get to kind of be in both seats. And so pairing wise, that has also been very beneficial for our students with IEPs or that struggle in the traditional classroom, because they're getting to kind of rely on their peers a little bit, but at the same time, their peers are having to learn and listen to maybe some outside of the box thinking and approaches to problem solving that they didn't really have before. And so paired programming has been super beneficial for a lot of kids in that sense. And even some of those kids that always try to be like the first one with their hand up and kind of run the classroom, when they have to slow it down a little bit and realize I can't just shout out the answers, it even kind of brings them down a little bit and helps them grow in that sense that I can't always just be the first one and shout things out. And then perseverance. There's a lot of problems. Even as teachers, we take on the role of lead learner. And so these kids have to learn, look, I don't have all the answers. I can't give it to you right now. We're so used to having answers right now. But you're going to have to work through this, and we're going to have to brainstorm, and we're going to have to really think about how we're approaching this problem. And we're going to do it together. And it really does teach them perseverance. And I will say I've had kids that just get completely frustrated. They might stand up quick enough that their chair falls back and they're just ready to throw their hands up. But when you just tell them, look, we can do this, we can work through it together, they come back, they sit down, they take a breath. Sometimes they have to go walk the hallways and come back. And as soon as they sit down, they're like, oh, I didn't do this, or I'm missing this piece. And they learn to persevere through that problem solving. So as a teacher, it's really helped me to take on this role of lead learner and to realize that I don't have to have all the answers. It's okay to go into this not knowing something and to kind of force my kids to teach me a little bit, like, okay, you pick this up much faster than I do. So how did you approach this problem? Or, having different groups showing and drawing things out. And it's not all just the lecture side of things anymore in the educational classroom. It's really trying to push their inquiry and their questioning and getting them to kind of think about things critically, and then teaching me a thing or two. I don't think I ever leave the classroom at any point that I haven't learned something new that day, which is phenomenal. And when you kind of have that brain shift, I know we still have some teachers that are older that aren't necessarily ready to completely let go yet, but once they discover that these kids can really teach them different things through questioning and inquiry, then it's a whole game changer, I think, for education. So we're going to look now at some statistics. I know this is kind of the boring part of things, but then we'll jump into the code.org site and we can really kind of talk about how in art this is going to be beneficial, how on the AP side of things, there's scaffolding to get to the AP side of stuff. And then even Shyla for occupational therapy, how it might help with focus and organizational skills, because, coding does have to really have a set set of organizational skills in order to run smoothly and get your code to operate. So I think we can really hit, I'm hoping anyways, to hit all of your interests and where you're at. So we'll go through the statistics fairly quickly, and then we'll jump into the code.org site. So all right, so code.org has done a lot, statistically speaking, a lot of research on where things are at. So a majority of schools don't teach computer science. We're finding that rather, prevalent across the United States. We're looking at 90% of parents want their children to study computer science, and only 47% of high schools teach computer science. And then even at that high school level, if they haven't had the exposure in the elementary and the middle school level, those kids aren't likely to continue learning computer science. It's not something that just really has captured their interest by this time. And I'm not saying you're not going to have those kids that just really latch onto it, but really we've seen statistically and study wise that elementary is kind of the point to grab them and get their interests piqued, move on to the middle school, funnel into high school, and then funnel them on to careers in computer science. It's foundational. We talked about like the problem solving and the perseverance, just like learning about photosynthesis or the digestive system or electricity or any other basic mathematical equation. Computer science is really fundamental. And these kids are now connected so early in their lives. I mean, I have a 4-year-old and I know that I hand him my phone or an iPad whenever I'm in a meeting or I'm busy. And it's amazing how he already knows I can swipe things over and I can find what I want. I can click on the app, I can open it. Now, can he read? Absolutely not. But by the icon or the picture, I can figure out what I want to play. And they're picking these skills up so early just because we're exposed all the time. And just having, that exposure all the time, it becomes something that's foundational. If we're looking at career side, there's value of computer science in education. Lifetime earnings of a high school graduate versus, my thing is being very touchy, versus those that go on to a graduate degree within secondary or post-secondary education, and then those that actually go into computer science. There is a major jump in lifetime earnings when you're looking from one to the next. And that's not to say that these computer science majors are just going into coding or just going into programming, but even looking at marketing and medical fields, agriculture. There's so many different ways we can incorporate computer science, and it actually boosts the industry if you're incorporating that into an already existing industry. So when we're looking at fundamentals here, it's fundamental for every student's success. They can perform better in other subjects. They excel at problem solving. 17% are more likely to attend college. These are all just skills that computer science education, not even just like focused computer science, but integrating it within classrooms. That's what we're seeing in these students. So now let me stop my share and then we'll switch over to the code.org website. I guess I could go back in and just do tabs, maybe. Escape. See, and I'm not even very good at like presenting, right? So let me just stop sharing, it'll be easier. What's the best way, April, to get back to my tabs on my internet?
So oftentimes when we're sharing or presenting, I have to go back and share. It's going to pop up your presentation again, but then click escape before you stop share. I don't know.
Well, that's what I was trying to do, but it didn't want to get out of presentation mode. Yeah. Let me go through the whole thing and then maybe, nope, there it goes. Okay.
There it goes. Okay. I can see your screen now. Actually, you're good. Okay.
Perfect. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let me go into the first code.org. When you go to code.org, this is the website that's going to pop up. This is what the homepage looks like. This is where you're going to find some information. So this CS Connections is brand new, but for our art people, this may be where you want to start because it really walks you through how it can match up with poetry and art and mathematics and science and They've been working on this for a couple years and they finally launched it, and I'm so excited they did. But it gives you the exact, what subject am I looking at? How many hours is this going to take me to complete this module? And it really relates computer science to those skills in that particular area. And they have different projects that they can work through. You've got life cycles, ecosystems, and science. Going down to our little guys, we have story plotting and morals of stories, and how can we in computer science see the flow of that story and pull out those ideas, right? And so that's where our abstracting and breaking things down might come in handy, and focusing on our characters. And so this CS Connections has really been beneficial to bridge those areas, especially if you're advocating for this in your school and maybe admin is not completely on board because they're not really sure about it yet. This is a great way to make those connections. If you're an admin, it's a great way to get buy-in from your teachers. So, and I'm gonna mute myself for just a minute because they're gonna do the pledge and the announcements. Okay, my apologies. We never have announcements or that many announcements until we're in the middle of something. But this has just been a great way to get teachers kind of on board with teaching computer science, especially at those lower levels. I know that our elementary teachers are just overwhelmed trying to fit all of what they need to in a certain day. And here comes another announcement.
One late breaking news item here. Student devices, Chromebooks or streams.
Is that Mr. Cogdill?
It is.
Yeah.
We just went remote last week, and so he's reminding everybody to bring all their devices back. Okay. So another big area that computer science is drifting into is this data visualization. And kids are really, right now being pounded with data day in and day out on the COVID and vaccines and all of this stuff. And so data, really breaking down data has become a big thing. And so code.org includes the data visualization and how to interpret data, which is a great lesson for kids in today's world.
Hey, Amanda.
Yes.
I do have a question in the chat for you.
Yeah.
From Abigail Smith, and she says, so it has a grade level, but as a 5th grader, if I have never had any coding, should I go back a couple of grade levels to begin to understand?
That would be very beneficial. If you're looking at like a structured class, you can really start if you're looking 5th grade, you can probably start with discoveries and it scaffolds enough, assuming that kids have never been exposed before. But looking at these modules, it might be beneficial if there is a lower one to go ahead and jump in at a lower level just to kind of build. But all of these are really scaffolded enough that I think with just a little bit of vocabulary and kind of a small set of concept description, that kids will pick it up at whatever level. I will say that if there's a programming piece to each of these, and I haven't worked through a lot of these connections because they were just launched last month, but with some of this, even if I'm like a master programmer, or if I've never been exposed to programming, it is going to scaffold enough to help those that have never been exposed. It might be a little redundant for those that have been exposed to programming before, but it's not going to be too long before they face something that makes them really kind of question their abilities just a little bit, and gets them thinking outside of the box. So code.org has really worked to make sure, let me put it at this level. We can scaffold. If somebody flies through this scaffolding, great. If they don't, that's okay. We can take this time to build those skills so that they truly understand what's going on, and they're not just putting in a bunch of programming language that they don't understand or don't see what the end result might be. And that's been from day one when code.org started. It was started by Hadi Partovi, and he grew up in a very poor neighborhood, didn't have any connection. They didn't have internet, they didn't have computers. And so by the time he reached high school level and actually was exposed to computers, he fell in love with them, and then wanted to make sure that these kids really could jump in at any point and still learn these concepts, and make sure that they understood them, not just really kind of ingested the material but didn't digest the material. So that's all of these. I think you could really start at any point and they'd be okay, but it may be worth, especially if they have a hard time digesting like bigger concepts and need them broken down a little more, you may want to go back. But I wouldn't hesitate to try, like if it says 5th grade, throw your 5th graders in there, even if they've never been exposed. And then if you see them struggling, go back to try to kind of scaffold. But even the curriculum is designed that way, to scaffold so that there's no background or prior knowledge necessary. I hope that answers any other questions off of that, or if that's okay. Okay. So then looking at this piece of the site. So this shows you the course catalog and where the grade levels are. It also takes you into the hour of code information. So if you only have, a couple hours in the school year, or the hour of code kind of CS push is in December. That's CS Computer Science Month is kind of November, December-ish time frame. And in like the first week of December, they'll do their big week of code. And code.org does a big kickoff. The kids can watch it live. They'll live stream it. And so they can see the kickoff, and then they'll go into releasing. Dance Party was 3 years ago. AI for Oceans, I think, was last year. And then this year we've kind of revisited the whole Minecraft thing and how we can explore and build and program within Minecraft. But they keep them all posted on here. And that didn't take me where I thought it was going to, but there's a lot of different projects that these kids can work on. I think one year there was a Frozen one, and so they had to like design these snowflakes, and it was all based upon getting your, they call it a turtle, to move around this certain pattern. And so they keep them all posted every year so that kids can revisit the ones that they like, but it just gets them tied into an interest first, and then gets them into the programming piece. And computer science isn't just programming, and that's a big thing for kids to learn too, especially at the high school level, because they want to just jump in and start programming apps or creating games. And it's so much more than just the programming piece, and there's so many other concepts that they have to learn. And so even if you have somebody that's like, I never want to program an app, I really don't care how my apps work, there's still valuable information in there. And so these are another good place if you're on a limited time frame to start, so that they at least get the exposure. Will they complete a snowflake every time? Probably not. I still have seniors that have taken computer science with me 2 or 3 years that can't complete some of the snowflakes in the game piece of it, because they just get so intricate, and the loops and the repeats, that they have to go through, they don't always calculate properly. So they are good for beginners all the way up to those that are experienced in it. So just a good place to start if you don't have a lot of time on your hands. And then if we actually go into the curriculum, We can see it broke out into different levels. Does this mean you have to stick to this piece of leveling? Absolutely not. I've taught my 7th graders the CS principles. That's 9th through 12th grade level. They struggled a little bit with some of the concepts, but we broke it down and we made sure that we moved at a slower pace. Fundamentals, if you've never had any kids exposed to computer science, or you're really looking on building, for Shyla, building that organization and getting, line by line, let me read everything, and breaking things down smaller. Fundamentals may be good for a sophomore or a junior in high school that really needs to build those foundational skills before we move on. So any of these can really be taught at any level, but they are designed to build. And so if we implement this right in our elementary schools and they're exposed to the K through 5 level, then it does build into our discoveries level, which is kind of our 6th through 10th. I would even say some of discoveries might be a little watered down in this 9th, 10th grade area. They may fly right through it or may not engage fully because they feel like it's kind of too low for them, but it does walk them through breaking down different problem solving techniques. Currently, our 7th graders are having to design a TED Talk, and it's a TED Talk around technological innovations. And so they've had to create and do research on a innovation in technology that's occurred within the last 5 years. So no self-driving cars, because that was actually developed like 10 years ago. No voice to text, because that was done like 15 to 20 years ago. And it's something they think is new. And then when they do the research and they find that it's not really that new, they get like baffled that it's been around that long. And so one of the discoveries lessons actually makes them do some kind of presentation. We turned it into a TED Talk and they have to present. I've even got red letters that say TED over here on my wall. And so they have to present in front of the TED letters and record themselves. And then they have to critique themselves by going back and watching their TED Talk and seeing if it would be something that they would actually listen to. And so there's lots of things built into this curriculum on all levels that makes them kind of step out of their comfort zone, work on public speaking skills, work on research and presentation skills. And then code.org is working on releasing this next school year their CSA. So Gloria, for AP, this would be kind of the scaffolding of where they would go from CS principles into CSA. Both of these have an AP exam and an AP component to them so that they can get the AP credit at that level. And so code.org has really worked on trying to make sure that these kids, if it's something that they're driven to do, are going to get rewarded with either those AP credits or at least the skills to go into a program post-secondary. So that's kind of the curriculum tracks. And that's really what I had in the presentation, but I wanted to open it up to questions and answers or ideas, or how would you want, how would you use this in your classrooms or with your teachers? How can I help you to engage students, or what kind of questions have I experienced that might increase engagement? So feel free to unmute and ask questions or give ideas or whichever. Chris?
I have a couple of questions, actually. One of them is the classes we have right now are 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to do this in a 45-minute time frame, or would I need to do like an extended lesson and do the full hour?
I think you could fit them into 45 minutes. It may take like sequential sections.
Okay.
So we, if you only have 45 minutes on Monday, you could start with the kind of concepts, and then you could move on. Like if you don't see them again until Wednesday, then that day go in and actually do the programming piece of it. So it's definitely something that's flexible enough to be able to do it that way. I have hour-long classes, but some of these might take us 3 days to get through. You just kind of balance it out, and it's flexible enough to fit in with your scheduling and whatever you need. I've had teachers that do block scheduling, and they might fly through 4 lessons in one day. So you make it work for you, and they're happy to see when teachers do that.
Well, Chris had a question, and I'm
Oh.
so sorry. Brian had to jump off for a coordinating council meeting that he had to prep
No
for.
problem.
Because I wanted to pick his brain, but this is something that is interesting, like 3D printing. Say if there was a lesson in that and we got into that. Basically, she's got to go, Chris has to go to 5 different school districts or
Okay.
schools
Mhm.
to teach. And when you're doing a 3D printing assignment, it takes forever. So she's like, oh my God, I should I get a piece of equipment for every school district? Is that what's needed to do that? Or what we have done at Region 9 in the past is basically checked out our 3D printers to schools that have projects going on, and we leave them there with the teacher or with an individual that has been minimally trained. Most of the time, we haven't had an issue with students hurting the equipment, or it really can't mess anything up. I'm sorry, I have a toddler.
Cute.
He's kind of pulling on me right now. So, it's actually worked pretty well in the past. And that's what we've done as a region. And so we just kind of take our 7 different school districts, and if they let us know that they have a need, we just get it to them. Because they are expensive. So we can't afford 7 of them. So.
Would you mind if I find out which kind of printers you use? That's one thing Abby and I have been looking at, is trying to find a way that we could do. We have 3D pens right now that
Awesome.
we're using, but we would like to be able to use 3D printers as well, if we can figure out how to do that with
Something that's
all of
kind
our
of has
schools.
enough quality but simple enough to use.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. What I will do, Chris, I'll probably be reaching out to you anyways, because I'm really curious about what you guys are doing in Roswell, and just to discover more about that. So I will send you an email with that information. I just want to make sure that I touch base with our tech guys to give you all the specs. Does that work?
Thank you.
Yes.
Another option you have too, to bring different technologies into your classroom. Not that we have 3D printers, but I'm on the Computer Science Teachers Association. I'm a VP of our New Mexico chapter currently, and we have a backpack program where we send Arduino components home with kids. And so in fact, we have a meeting today. So if you're interested in that,
Yes,
and I'll
please.
give you my email here in a minute, and you can email me. And I can get your name in for that program. And we've worked with students from NMSU. So we have lessons in English and in Spanish that they can work through with the Arduino components. But the idea of those is to take them home so that parents are getting exposure to this and buying into this computer science education as well. So it's really kind of up to the teacher to check out the backpacks. We piloted it here at Corona. And I sent the components home with the kids. They didn't necessarily follow the lessons, but it was interesting for parents to see, hey, I can turn this fan on if I connect these wires from this piece to this motherboard. And then just based on turning the switch, like I've now turned on this little fan motor. And so even to get parent buy-in. So I'll make sure, in fact, right now, I'll put my email in the chat. And if that is something you're interested in, just shoot me an email of where you're at and how many kids you're looking at possibly servicing. And once we get the ball rolling a little bit further on that, we can get you matched up with that piece of computer science as well. So
Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. And there's lots of resources available. So CSTA, officers meet monthly. We're looking at trying to start quarterly membership meetings so that teachers and admin can participate and shoot ideas. And we're looking at building like a video library and visiting. There's a lot of tech industry in New Mexico that a lot of people don't realize is there. And our kids, right, are going to computer science. Maybe they're going to get a degree in computer science and they're leaving the state, which is a huge disservice to the industry in New Mexico. And so we're looking at building a video library of showcasing some of those industries within New Mexico and the need for these students moving forward from New Mexico, and how they can help fill those spots. And so CSTA is a great place. You can go to the csta.org, which is the national site, and you can join at the national level, which automatically kind of puts you in the New Mexico, because it'll ask you at some point where your state, what state you're from, and what region you're from, and then it'll funnel you into the New Mexico CSTA website list and kind of contact list.
So Amanda, would it be good
Uh-huh.
for Chris and Abigail to get a Paige to contact them?
It might be worth it, either Paige
Okay.
or even Yolanda. Paige
Okay.
isn't currently on CSTA, but that's another resource, the CS Alliance, New Mexico's Computer Science Alliance. They're the ones that really
I don't
work
know.
to the PD week in June. That's who kind of organizes that whole PD week. So Paige has great ideas. Yolanda's got some
Yes.
good ideas. And that's another great resource is the CS Alliance.
I think they'd be a great connection for you guys if you don't already have them. So we'll get that information to you, and I'll make sure that they reach out to you. So just be on the lookout for Paige and Yolanda.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then just some other like things happening in New Mexico. We did do some legislation this last time to try to get graduation requirements. Of course, if you're math and science endorsed, we can count computer science as a math or science credit at the high school level. But there was some legislation to really work at like making sure that elementaries and middle schools are offering computer science. That one unfortunately died in committee, but we're always pushing to get legislation started and get that rolling so that schools are getting some funding to support these programs. And that's the nice thing about the CS task force is a lot of us come from these poorly funded schools that just don't have the leeway in their funds to purchase 3D printers or to purchase robotic equipment or those kind of things. And so there's several of us that have pushed on that front. And so far, the legislation has been pretty gracious and there are funds out there, but I just don't think schools know where to access those funds. So CSTA, I know we're working on trying to make sure that that information is spread out to schools as well.
Well, and we had a big grant come through the state, and we needed to use those dollars, and Amanda was a part of that. Corona was a part of that, and it went through Region 9. But yeah, they were just phenomenal. Paige was phenomenal with just finding, making sure that we had those resources. So there's extra dollars out there. It's just, I think you're right. A lot of times we don't know schools don't know how to get to them, so.
Yeah. And there's a lot of times too, there's so many
No,
stipulations
baby.
on them that really limits what you can spend them on. And currently it does seem like a lot of them are pushed more toward like teacher PD and training teachers, which is a great place to start. That way our teachers are aware that, I know how to operate this 3D printer, or I know how I can access this curriculum or this curriculum, even though I'm not experienced necessarily in teaching computer science. This is the curriculum that's going to help get my kids there. And so the PD week is a good resource. And training, but it is at the same time very kind of frustrating when you're like, well, I really do need 3D printers, or I do need robotics equipment, or I do need something other than just, this teacher PD. How can I access that? So we are working on that part of it, trying to get those funds to be a little less restrictive. And that way we can get them into the schools and make sure that teachers are trained in how to use them, but that they become beneficial to the kids and they're not just a fancy paperweight that collects dust and sits in the corner because nobody knows how to use it. So any other questions or ideas? I do have a presentation if you're looking for buy-in from kids or even admin on how to relate it to different fields of study. My kids really found that, of course, the agricultural industry, we related it to several areas, but also the
I think you want duty too, maybe.
sports training and how to relate it to like sports training and how they calculate the movements of an athlete and those kind of things with computer science. And that was pretty attention grabbing for the kids. So if I can always send that PowerPoint to you, if you're looking for that resource to kind of create buy-in with kids or parents or admin or any other community members that might be able to help funding wise as well.
If you want to send that to me, Amanda, I can blast it off to all of your participants for the day. So
Sure.
they have those additional resources if you would like.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll post it on the agenda as well. So
Okay.
that way, if anybody goes back and looks at the recorded session or the archive session, they'll be able to access those materials as well. that work?
Okay, and then, yeah, within that slideshow, there's my contact information and Yolanda's. Yolanda is the president of CSTA this year, and she's also co-founder of CS Alliance. So she's always a good resource to have as well. So that'll be in that presentation. Any
Okay.
other questions or thoughts? Okay, then that's pretty much all I have for you guys, and I appreciate you listening in this morning. It was fun and kind of neat to see different faces and hear how you're interested in putting this in your schools.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.